And what are we doing today, little pup? Okay, dog? We're going to play Super Tempo on the Sega Saturn. Okay, don't get up. I got you. Before we get started, I wanted to preface this by saying I just found out tonight my niece and nephew somehow know about this channel and watch my videos. Now, I have no idea how the fuck they found out about any of this, Monica. That's odd and slightly embarrassing, but okay guys, if you like watching shit, welcome to hell, my friends. You've found it. Max and Lux, I love you guys. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the shit fest. So, I was watching some GameSack on the Tube a while ago, and I remember Joe from that channel mentioning Super Tempo in one of their videos, and he was showing an enemy pissing a waterfall, and I thought to myself, hey, that game looks interesting. And after searching Google, I realized there isn't a ton of information out about this game, so I figured, what the hell, let's check this one out. I added it to my list of games to take a look at, and so for this week's video, if you haven't guessed yet, we're going to be checking out Super Tempo. Now, before I get into the review, let's go into a little information on the game, as is custom for most of my reviews. Then we will jump right into the meat and potatoes of the video. Super Tempo is a 2D puzzle platformer for the Sega Saturn, developed by Red Company, who also made Bonk's Adventure on the PC Engine, which is one I would like to cover eventually, since I still have yet to review anything on that console. And this game was published by MediaQuest in April of 1998. This game is a Japan exclusive, and it kind of shows with some of the enemies peeing from their little pee-pee without censorship, as many publishers were often censoring games back in those days outside of Japan to protect our frail little children here in America. Now, I could make jokes about how this didn't come to America because we can't handle Japanese oddities like their supposed used panty vending machines or restaurants where people shit on glass ceilings above you while you eat, but that's not why this game didn't come here. It was released late in the Saturn's life, and at that point in the US, the PlayStation already pushed Sega's shit in so hard it could barely walk. There was no reason to bother bringing it out here. No one was going to buy it because nobody had a Sega Saturn. This is like Economics 101. Plus, at the time, the United States was obsessed with shitty-looking three-dimensional games like Bubsy 3D, which is a real shame, and I bought into this hype too, so I'm guilty here, but since the Saturn was built to be the best 2D console around, and those games have stood the test of time, which I've mentioned multiple times throughout my videos, unlike old 3D games which look like total crap, I kind of wonder sometimes how well the Saturn would have fared if it would have stayed the course and developers other than Capcom would have really supported the 2D angle of the console, but unfortunately, that's a world we don't live in. Now, there are games like Super Tempo on the console, obviously, but still. The library as a whole, you can tell Sega and its developers decided to chase the 3D dragon instead of utilizing its amazing 2D capabilities, and that really hurts my feelings because it's what the console was built for, but let's just review this thing. I'm going to be tearing into this game pretty hard, but I do it out of love, and just because there's a lot to bitch about here, that doesn't necessarily mean I don't like the game, so don't start making assumptions quite yet. I'm going to be going over things that are good and bad about it, as any good reviewer should, assuming there's any of both, and reserve my final judgment until the end, you know, like, how a review is. That being said, Super Tempo is a strange game and a hard one to pick up and play if you don't speak Japanese, so that's definitely a knock against it, but one that isn't the fault of the game, it's our fault. I don't speak Japanese, and you probably don't either, so I had a hard time playing it initially, and you will too, but I stuck the course because I'm dedicated to bringing you the best YouTube content around. Google Translate did not help me much either, as it struggles to translate Japanese text that's stylized in any way, like graphically, so I didn't know my way around the options or couldn't understand the text in any way, and later in this review, you'll see this actually comes back to bite me in the ass so hard a few times in a really negative way, and we'll get to that eventually. And again, that's not a knock against the game because that's just what it is, but I'm saying that as a caution, like, If you plan on importing this and don't speak Japanese, just be prepared to deal with some straight bullshit. So anyway, I just moved on to playing the game and skipped all the story elements because why bother? This isn't Highlander and this isn't The Quickening. First thing I noticed were that the controls aren't very responsive. You play the game with only 2 buttons, jump and attack, and the jump is really floaty and the attack is very short ranged and not very effective, so already we're off to a bad start. Tempo shoots out bubbles from a violin, which is as stupid as it sounds, and his girlfriend shoots out fire from a gun, which tickles my fancy just a bit, but both of these attacks are pretty boring and weak in my opinion. Like, what, the devs just couldn't be bothered to give any of these characters any kind of creative attack? It's fucking bubbles and fire. How adorable. And the reach of these attacks is like, I don't know, an inch? Cool. We'll talk about Tempo's girlfriend more in a bit, but generally they control similarly, except his girlfriend can fly unrestrained, and once unleashed, she zips all over the place at a blazing speed, and by blazing speed, I mean everything is slow in this game. Like, look at Tempo climb this rope. This is embarrassing. Like, I don't have all day to wait through this shit. Like, fucking go! Climb faster, pulls. Please? Now, both characters are really clunky to control. They move slowly and respond slowly to inputs from the D-pad, and I think that's a problem with the animation. The animation is great, and the game looks phenomenal, but because of the amount of animation, you have to wait through the animations in order to do anything, so because of this, everything just feels so goddamn slow. So just turning around takes like a second, and that sucks. I feel like platformers like this benefit from being speedy and responsive, not slow and clunky. I'm not playing Myrtle the fucking Turtle here, I'm playing Tempo. But this might just be a symptom of the generation in which it was released, except no, because anyone that's played Mario 64, they know that that game controls fantastic. That was released before this one, so obviously the devs knew the deal here. This vein in my forehead is going to explode. This is a puzzle platformer, but I would say that the puzzle elements are very light but very cryptic. This is also a symptom of the 90s where you just never know what the game wants from you, like just walking back and forth all over the place like, what the fuck do I do? I covered this exact thing in my review of Dynamite Heady where it's just never clear what you're supposed to do. Making a puzzle is one thing, but just making it so completely obscure as to what you're supposed to be doing in order to drag the game out longer is another thing. It sucks, and it's not fun, and this game does that quite a bit. The first instance of this is the first boss. He's just a giant robotic frog thing, and you keep trying to shoot him with your shitty bubbles, but it doesn't do any damage. So you're like, okay, I guess I'll just hop around like an idiot until something happens, and that's just exactly what you do. After shooting him forever and killing the sperms he shoots out of his mouth, you eventually just get a random power-up, and then you have to do a rapid button push quick time where if you push the button fast enough, you win. That was it, but it was never explained that this was the point there, and that's my problem with this game. There's nothing explained to you, and there's no consistency. I feel like I'm playing a treasure game right now. This is the only time in the game that you do this, but it's like so powerful. Why doesn't Tempo just do this all the time? It's like, this frog just fucking exploded because he couldn't handle how ripped Tempo was. Why would Tempo not be like, fuck yeah, let's do that, like, a lot? I don't get it. And to me, it's like this game is like listening to a little kid tell a story that just makes shit up on the spot. Like, okay. And then I fought like this giant frog thing, and he was a robot, and then he shot black sperm out of his mouth, and like you're on a lily pad, and then you eat a cow, and then you turn into like a huge guy, and you're strong, and the frog is like, holy shit, and then the frog like explodes, and then you float. Like, yeah, dude, okay, what? Next stage, please. So after that, you go to a level where you go to multiple buildings and just walk around, and then it becomes clear to you that you have to pick up ghosts of random animals. But it never explains to you where to get the ghosts or why you need them. You just have to get them. And again, this is a big flaw with the game. And I think it exists just to make the game longer, and it's like the devs are just making this up on the spot. There's no structure. Like, Why is Tempo getting ghosts? What the fuck is this for? Why do ghosts exist in this world but only right here and never again? It's just like, what the heck, dude? So you walk all over the place trying to get ghosts, and I literally played this stage for like an hour, having no idea what to do or why I'm doing it. And yeah, you will randomly find these ghosts, but there's one that is missing, and that's the dog. And here's the deal. You go to the place where you can get the dog, but it seems like an area where you're not allowed to go yet because you don't have what you need or something. A bird just flies around and shows a bat symbol, and it blinks and then kicks you out. So it's like multiple times I'm like, okay, so are the bat enemies the key here? Do I need a bat to proceed? Like, what do I do here? What the fuck? Just by dumb luck, I entered this area and out of frustration just pushed a bunch of buttons and then got the dog ghost. It turns out you need to just randomly keep pushing buttons and up and down on the D-pad, and then it eventually lets you take control of this stupid wall with a bunch of random animals on it, and you pick the dog symbol on the wall, then you get the dog. Which, this is just horrible game design. How in the fuck am I ever supposed to figure that out? Like, how? Like, yeah, I did, but that's why this exists, just to waste your time. It's disrespectful as hell to the player's time, and it makes me want to cry. Why does this exist? Why? God, fuck it, whatever. So you get the dog, and then you fight a boss that is so easy, then you complete the level. And also, this level is when you first get introduced to Tempo's girlfriend, but I'm so annoyed by the dog ghost, I don't even care or want to talk about it. So basically, she plays the same, but she can fly. That's all you need to know there. This level sucked, dude. Let's move on to anything that's not this. So, how's it looking so far? Not great, right? But I'm still playing it, and despite my grievances, I don't hate it. There's just a lot I feel like the game can do better, but at the same time, I'm impressed with the graphics, and for the most part, the overall gameplay is alright, and the overall look and feel of the game is quirky and energetic. It's like Steve Urkel.
Hi, Laura.
I'll also note here that, like, for a game that is music themed, the music is a real disappointment. It's not terrible so far, but there's absolutely nothing memorable. And I kind of feel like that's another huge knock against the game. If it's going to be music themed, the music better be dope, right? Well, so far it's not, and spoiler alert, it never really gets better than just okay. And in the later stages, we'll look at some absolute bombs that would be atrocious even in the NES days. I'm very disappointed by the music in this game in general. Like, by comparison, Kirby's Adventure on the NES has music that blows this soundtrack away, and that's really saying something. Like, either that soundtrack is insanely good, or this soundtrack is insanely bad, and I think it's a mix of both. But, okay, like I said, I don't hate the game so far. There's just a lot of tough love I'm giving it because it deserves it. Let's continue, shall we? God. Let's touch on a few of the elements that comprise the game. Now, I just talked about the music. Let's talk about the enemies now, as this seems like a good place to go into that, just because I feel like I have to, and I don't know where else to put it. Now, maybe you've noticed, but so far there's nothing really memorable here as far as enemies go. It's just like floating things. There's some things that are on the ground that do some stuff. There's like that peeing guy, which is kind of cool, but I wouldn't exactly say he's an enemy. All he's doing is pissing, and you just kill him for no reason. He doesn't even do anything. He just looks like he's loving taking a piss, and this guy definitely deserves to be on the sex offender list. Like, look at this. And you kill him with bubbles, and I'd say that makes Tempo actually an asshole. There are some later enemies, though, that get weirdly sadistic, almost like something out of a Silent Hill game, like these crazy nurses, and that I really like. Overall, though, there's nothing amazing here, but there are a few standouts, and the bosses, for the most part, despite not being very fun to play, they look really good in general. Like, that's a huge positive for this game, though. Like, at the very least, it generally looks really great. It's not animated exactly as good as something like, I don't know, Metal Slug, which obviously I'm obsessed with, and it really should be, though, since this is more like, it's a more powerful console, but it does still look damn good in places. I'll give it that. I just wish the music was better, and what a letdown on that front. It should be better. Well, there are, oh god, yeah. Yeah, excuse me for being a disgusting freak. So there are some deviations from the main game in an attempt to mix things up a bit, and I do appreciate that. Like, there are a few shmup zones where you control Tempo's girlfriend, and while these weren't as fun as the surprise shmup section in Kirby's Adventure that I talked about in that video, which, if you didn't watch that, please do, because that game slaps, and that shmup section, and that was so goddamn fun. The shmup section here is just so bare bones and mediocre, and it's not terrible, but it's just not impressive. A lot of times it's like the devs here were content with just everything being acceptable, which this certainly is, but with a few tweaks, this could have been really awesome. And some of you probably know, like, shmups and bullet hell are my favorite genre of games, and so this should be right up my alley, but instead I just kind of felt like it did the bare minimum to just get by, and that's a shame, but again, it's not terrible, it's just not great either. But good lord, don't even get me started on the Pegasus level. So we're back now into shmup territory, but this time you're flying right to left, dodging obstacles that you are not clear on whether or not they'll kill you, but one-touch deaths here, but some obstacles just damage you, and it's random which ones do what, and this level here just is to drain you of all your spare lives, which it will, while you try to figure out what in the absolute hell the game wants from you. This was one of the most frustrating things I've experienced in a game recently. Like, this is straight Mario's Time Machine bullshit right here. I literally lost like 10 lives, which is almost all I had trying to get through this stupid ass level. And remember that language barrier I talked about earlier? Yeah, well, this is where it straight up sucks asshole, because there's text that tells you what path is the good one and which one is the bad one, and without knowing Japanese, you're just straight up guessing. And if you guess wrong, it's an instant death. Also, it isn't clear what is safe to touch and what isn't. Like, almost everything kills you instantly, but then look, there's these instruments. There's a banjo right here, and I keep dodging it since everything else kills you when you touch it, so obviously I'm avoiding this. But every time I die, then I start the level all over again. Well, as I later found out after losing almost all of my lives, these instruments are actually save points. How the fuck should I ever know that? The game says nothing about that, so I was just avoiding these. Everything fucking kills you. Why would I just assume that these are fine? It's bad game design again. Like, stop doing this shit. If the devs want to change how the game mechanics work all of a sudden in the middle of a stage where everything before just killed you, you have to fucking tell the player. You have to. Oh, God. Okay. Jesus Christ. All right. It's horrible. I hated everything about this stage. It's the worst. Like, look, when you get to the end here, you just sit here looking at a piano. So I'm like, okay. So I just touched this piano. It is a music instrument after all, and I found out the hard way that music instruments on this stage are good, so I'll just go ahead and touch this here. Oh, whoops, I'm dead. So it turns out you just have to push the bottom key on the piano, which I did again by just pure dumb luck, and this is never explained. This is infuriating bullshit, and the devs should be ashamed of themselves for this travesty. I'm done talking about this, but just to be clear, this is the level that doomed the entire rest of my playthrough, since this took almost every single extra life I had to get through this slog, and this was absolutely infuriating. This definitely makes me not like the game at this point and will affect the rest of this review going forward. Seriously, that Pegasus level almost makes me want to puke all over, but the only saving grace was that a portion of its difficulty was due to me not knowing Japanese, so this game still barely ekes by at this point, but I'm not exactly digging it. But again, if you plan on importing or playing this one, you need to be aware that this exists, and it is insanely frustrating, and honestly, once you get past this, the rest of the game isn't nearly as frustrating, but it has its moments, as we'll talk about right now. So after you beat that level, you reach a level eventually. God damn it. So after that, you eventually reach a level with tacks all over the floor. And this again is where the game reaches extreme frustration levels. Every single part of this level is designed to damage you and annoy you. Pieces of paper on the wall fly off and hurt you. Random freaks pop out and throw potted plants at you and damage you. There are attacks on the floor that you can't see from ledges that you jump off of and fall onto, which is unacceptable. There are invincible metal enemies that shoot lasers. Silent hill nurses that zip out of nowhere and run into you. Dragons that fly overhead and drop fish that fly all over and damage you. It just never stops. And it's never clear where you gotta go either. You just keep going into doors that lead to more doors, that lead to more doors, that lead to more doors. So you tough it out, you get hit every second of the level until you finally reach the end and pretty much wish you were doing anything other than playing this game at this point. And this final stage is kinda cool looking. It's like a metal skull where you push a button and a rope appears that I showed earlier. So you climb this thing for 20 or 30 minutes and then you enter a boss rush with some small platforming between. Now, the bosses here are the same as before and extremely easy to defeat, but it's the platforming sections between these fights that are just insanely frustrating. Look at this windmill section here. There is no rhyme or reason like how you jump on these blades. Sometimes Tempo grabs on and sometimes he doesn't. It's just completely random. And then trying to fling yourself to the other blades. I mean, dude, just, I don't know. Watch the video, man. Like, I don't even know what to say about this. Just watch the compilation of clips of me trying to do this. Like, what fucking horse shit is this? Who made this? Seriously, just keep watching this. This is terrible. This is so bad. Just keep watching this. I'm gonna keep showing it to you because I can't. I seriously can't. I can't tell you hard enough just how bad this is. What is this? We're still going. Like, look at this. What is this? Who is responsible for this? Like, who made this and thought it was okay? How did this get past fucking quality control? Who did this? Everybody failed that developed this game, and this somehow shipped in the final product. Are you still watching this? Like, look at it. What is this? Why is this so bad? What? So eventually you get through this. God, and you have like 0 guys left because of that stupid Pegasus level. Then you get to the final boss, who is just another Tempo. I'm like, okay, so this is not a bad guy, right? Then this other Tempo just kills me immediately, and that's the end of the game. How was I ever supposed to figure out that Bizarro Tempo was a bad guy? Why would I have just assumed that he looks exactly like me? There was nothing weird about him, like no glowing red eyes or a darker color. He was just an exact replica of Tempo that just kicked my asshole in immediately and gave me a game over. So I'm staring at this screen here, which I assume is a continue screen, so I break out Google Translate to see if I can figure out which is the option to continue. And the game just decides that if you wait 10 seconds, you just don't need to continue anymore, and it brought me to the title screen. No saved progress, no way to continue where I was, nothing. Just start right from the beginning. And this is where I straight up said, fuck this game, and I quit. I'm not doing that again, and that continue screen was such garbage. Like, why put a time limit on that? Who fucking cares how long I sit there? Why did the devs even do that? Like, yeah, you snooze, you lose, bitch. Right back to the title screen for you. Yeah, well, fuck you, man. I'm done here. I really wanted to beat the game, but I am not playing through that again. I'm just not. So, god damn it. So there it is now. What did I think about Super Tempo and the Sega Saturn? Well, I know from my criticism, it definitely sounds like I hated the game, but I actually didn't. Like, look, I think if anything, I was just more or less annoyed by it here, and for the most part, I can't even get my thoughts together. Like, yeah, dude, I was annoyed, okay? But I didn't hate the game. And for the most part, it's just a very unenthusiastic, like, it's just fine. A lot of annoyances here can definitely be forgiven, and for the most part, I was able to get over them and still somewhat enjoy myself. And I did want to beat the game, but later on I did find myself more frustrated than not, and by the end, I can't fucking talk, dude. Look, I was just ready to hang up the controller and turn the console off, okay? Which I did. It's not a terrible game, even if it comes off that way. I could see myself recommending this one if you've got a modded Saturn with like a Terra Onion mode, or if you're emulating it for free on your PC. Like, I don't know if you can even do that yet with Saturn games, but I would just like to say, like, if you can buy this for under 10 bucks, I think it's worth that. But I wouldn't spend any more than that on it. It's fine for a single playthrough, but I really can't see myself wanting to come back to this one, and that's it. It's just an okay game that's okay for a single playthrough, and then it's instantly forgettable. Nothing really makes this stand out against anything else you could ever play, aside from maybe the looks of it, and that's just too bad because I think this one had a lot of potential, but it was just all floundered by some really poor choices by the devs, and there you go. There's a review of Super Tempo on the Sega Saturn. If you enjoyed this, please hit the subscribe button and click like. If you played this one, leave a comment below and let me know what you thought of it. Thanks for watching this bad boy, and guys, I'll see you on the next video.